All right, vlog 3 is underway. I've gone back to back here. I've already had an idea of what I wanted to discuss, and we're just going to do it again. So I just spoke about factors on how to increase performance, and they're not all physical. There's three other factors. So if you haven't seen that video, do go back and watch it. I think it's only 7, 8, maybe 9 minutes long. So perhaps time well spent. But we'll go over the deadlift. My experience, I've kind of come back to deadlifts. There was a moment where I not do them, but I thought the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. But I've kind of got a different outlook and a different lens on how I view deadlifts. With that being said, how I do view a deadlift is obviously it's more posterior chain focus. So when I say posterior chain, all the muscles on your back, so hamstrings, bum, lower back, and all the lats, etc., etc. Introduction to deadlifts, I am a big fan of, particularly with juniors or people new to weightlifting or resistance training or strength training, whatever you want to call it. I'll always start them first with a hinge with a dowel, get them to a rack pull, and this will give them a good understanding and a good sensation of what heavy feels like, particularly in this position. And then to a block pull, which will probably be a little bit more quad involved, and then eventually on the floor. I see too many people, and hopefully this doesn't come across as too rude, but I see coaches just teaching people how to deadlift straight away, and they're so fixated on so many different factors, because deadlift, even though it's simple, just stand up, it is very complicated. And if you're giving your new client 5 different cues, take the slack out of the bar, keep your hips down, I want you to externally rotate this, I want you to take a breath in, it's so tough for them, and they may not express it, but internally they're going crazy because they're focusing on so many things, and then they'll do it, and then you cue them again, and then they just don't know what's going on. So I'm a big fan of just doing rack pulls. Very simple, and you get a good understanding. Not many cues involved in a rack pull. Just stick your bum out, big abs, whatever, and then just stand up. It's not too complicated, but again, as we progress, so you might start 3 weeks on a rack pull, then 3 weeks on a block pull, and then go light deadlifts. Yeah, so that's a little bit crazy to me, but that's how I just personally do it. But in terms of a deadlift, do it, not to do it, kind of depends. For a athlete, I probably would. And this isn't to say that, you have to do 1 RMs or everything, or you have to go 100% on every single lift. A lot of coaches are afraid of doing deadlifts. Why not? Someone made a good point the other month or other week that I heard, just like, why can't you just do deadlifts at 70%? Why does a deadlift have to be a grindy rep? Or why do you have to max out at a 3, 4, 5, 6 RM? So I'm back on the deadlift wagon, but like I said, a few years ago I thought the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. I was just doing block pulls, and then reverse hypers for my lower back. But I'm back, and I'm a big fan. You just got to coach it properly. I think as a coach, you just need to put your ego at the door and just like, there's no rush. Your client or your athlete doing a deadlift, and potentially, or you risking not getting it wrong, but just spending too much time, spending too much time just not mucking around, but just like fixing stuff that, you're wasting time here. You got an hour and 90 minutes with them. Just get them to do a rack pull, and then they'll figure it out. Let the athlete or client just figure it out for themselves on how to figure it out, of how to, I guess, comprehend on what you, the coach, is trying to say. But I'll break down the deadlift. In terms of how do I increase my deadlift, some people go, just deadlift, dude. If you want to deadlift, if you want to improve your deadlift, just deadlift. To some degree, yes, I like that in a technical aspect. I think getting a good repetition is good, but I'm also a big fan of breaking up the deadlift. So say you struggle, and this is a good, if you're a coach and you've got a good coach's eye, you'll look at the speed of the bar, where the bar slows down and where it speeds up. So if the bar's traveling slow off the ground but then speeds up, that tells me that you've got you need to work on you've got weaker in comparison to everything else. You've got weaker quads and weaker abs, so that's a big weakness for me, for the lifter. If the bar is slow at the knee, that tells me you got a weak lower back. The hips are the furthest away from the bar, and that's putting stress on the lower back, or the load is more geared to the lower back and it starts to slow at that point. Do more lower back work. I'm talking hypers, I'm talking good mornings, all that good stuff, a lot of hinging. And then if it's starting to fail above the mid-thigh, it's almost always weak hips and weak glutes. So rather than just practicing the deadlift, like if you notice those things and you're practicing the deadlift, why not just break it up? Why not just do some good, if the bar is slow just above the knee at the thigh, do some good mornings, do some reverse hypers, work on that lower back, or do some rows, whatever. And then don't be so specific, and this is just my bias, don't be so specific on this portion of the lift, and we're going to break it down, and at this point we'll just do tempo work and pauses. Like, it works, but I think just doing your accessories is such a big part, and I've spoken about this before. 80% accessories, 20% compound movements. So always get a gauge on where the bar is slowing down or where you feel you struggle in those different pieces. But yeah, I'm a big fan of deadlift variations, like I said. So rack pulls, block pulls. I like pauses and tempo work. They have their place, but I'd be more geared to just, like, again, if you're gonna deadlift, practice like moving quick. I like deadlifts as they kind of build a base. They're good for beginners as well. Those deadlift variations, sorry. In terms of, again, if we're talking more athletic performance, like these deadlifts, they're going to build up your posterior chain. They're going to build your hip extensors, which are the adductors, glutes, and hamstrings. And these are muscles that people always seem to have trouble with. I've never seen a torn quad from running, or a small tear while running. It's more or less hamstrings. So, and they're also a muscle group that you can't see. And this is my experience with footy players. They like to look big, they like to look strong, they'll bodybuild a lot, which is fine, love it. But they'll only focus on things that you can see. So you can focus on those sweet teardrop muscles or whatever, and do your front squats and all that crap. But they don't focus on hamstrings. Hamstrings aren't sexy, but speed is sexy. So get around the deadlift train. But like I said, you don't have to be training deadlifts 10 out of 10. You don't have to be just grinding them up, because that's just stupid in any exercise. But that's about it. I'll talk about speed. Should you do speed deadlifts? I'm a big fan of speed deadlifts. I'm a big fan of doing acceleration, but I think we'll talk about that a little bit later. So a lot of accommodating resistance when it comes to deadlifts or posterior chain work, I think, is super important. but we'll talk about that later. But other than that, thank you so much. If you haven't seen any other videos, please feel free to do so. And if you like these videos, send it to a friend or send this video to someone who's on the fence of deadlifts or the deadlift sucks. Later.